Hello and welcome to the fourth instalment of the That Sports Blog video blog. So this week football's been on an international break, so we'll start there with some international football. England saw off San Marino to win 5-0. Slightly weakened England team, key players like Harry Kane were rested, but there were goals from Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Ollie Watkins, James Ward-Prowse and Raheem Sterling, which give England some hope that actually the depth can pop up and help out there. Gareth Southgate might be a little bit disappointed though in the result. Yes, 5-0 is a good win, but 5-0 against San Marino is possibly one of the more average scorelines against them. England ended up having 32 shots with 15 being on target. It does look a little bit like they took the foot off a little bit towards the end and couldn't quite put San Marino to the sword. I mean, that does show that there was some good defending there from San Marino, and particularly the goalkeeping with the 15 shots and only 5 of those going past him. But I think England may be a little bit disappointed they couldn't put them a bit more to the sword, maybe just have a nice little bump on your goal difference there. Meanwhile, a spectacular overhead kick from John McGinn salvaged a draw for Scotland, who had twice come from behind to level against Austria. That was a 2-2 draw there. Northern Ireland was seen off by Italy. That was 2 first half goals for Italy and ended a 2-0 win. Republic of Ireland fell to a 3-2 defeat to Serbia, and Wales lost 3-1 to Belgium despite an early goal from Harry Wilson. In other footballing news, Aberdeen have ended their managerial hunt with Stephen Glass joining the Dons from Atlanta United 2, which is the Atlanta United reserves, after filling in as the interim manager while they were looking for somebody there. So he'll be returning to the club that he started his career, and he'll take the reins following the departure of Derek McInnes. Stephen Glass will be joined by Scott Brown, who's going to leave Celtic after 14 years and join Aberdeen and start next season in a player-coach role. So there's lots of things going on in Aberdeen there. Hopefully with the experience of Brown, and potentially if they can bring in a couple more players, they might be able to close that gap a little bit and on Celtic and Rangers and push on a little bit. There's a lot of teams needing to do that in Scotland, with the teams needing to close the gap and consolidate and push on, particularly with obviously Rangers have run away with it this season and Celtic have looked a little bit weaker. So there's chances there for the likes of Hibs, Aberdeen, Livingston, St Johnstone, those teams that are finishing around the top 6 to reinforce themselves and push on. I mean, Aberdeen have really struggled recently, so depending on how this new regime change there goes in, there could be the opportunities for the likes of Livingston or St Johnstone to push themselves towards those European places and really give Aberdeen and Hibs a fight there. But hopefully for Aberdeen fans, with this appointment and with Scott Brown coming over, it may mean that they can find a bit more form and find themselves in a position where the only teams that they are being beaten by are Rangers and Celtic, and potentially that the only teams are dropping points to are the likes of Hibs, Livingston and St Johnstone, and really try and consolidate their position in the top 3 of Scottish football and try and build towards something where they may be able to mount a title push in some of the coming seasons. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch there with what's going to happen there. Obviously Rangers are having a spectacular season, a bit more resourcing and a bit more strengthening of their squad. They may be able to push on and try and build a dynasty like Celtic have had over the last 10 years, but Celtic will be looking to strengthen and try and get their title back. So it's going to be an interesting season next year when that all comes in. Back into international football, both Germany and Norway had staged protests before their game. The Norwegian team wore t-shirts that read "Human Rights on and off the pitch," while the German team each wore a black t-shirt with letters that spelt out human rights. They stood in a line and spelt it out there. The protests are to show support for the migrant workers who are building stadiums in Qatar. Last month, a report from The Guardian said that 6,500 migrant workers had died since Qatar was awarded the World Cup back in 2010. So they're supposed to be hosting the World Cup in 2022, and there's been a lot of concerns about the human rights and the safety of the workers who were there, and obviously some teams are starting to protest. The Norwegian FA was asked by teams in their top flight to not send a team to the World Cup, so there's a lot of things that need to be looked into there in terms of the safety of everybody going on, and 2 big European teams have started to protest, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few more. But we're going to move away from football. Yesterday, March 25th, saw the NBA trade deadline pass. There was a lot of talk and interest buzzing around about whether the likes of Kyle Lowry or Lonzo Ball would move on, but both of them have stayed put. Lonzo Ball set to be a free agent at the end of the season, so he may be the big talking point of the free agency period at the end of the season, but for now he will stay with the Pelicans. The New Orleans Magic have kind of hit the reset button, and they're looking like they're starting to rebuild again with a lot of young players and a haul of draft picks from the trade period. So it looks like they're going to build around Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaacs, and Wendell Carter Jr. They've sent a lot of their best players away, so it looks like they're potentially going to finish in a position that's going to give them a very good draft positions. But it looks like they are going through a bit of a rebuild there. Moving away from basketball, we have ice hockey news. The New York Rangers' Mika Zibanejad set an NHL record with 6 points in consecutive games against the same opponents as the Rangers beat the Philadelphia Flyers 8-3. His other 6 goals came in their 9-0 win in the last game they played against the Flyers. The Pittsburgh Penguins stretched the Buffalo Sabres' winless run to 16 games with a 4-0 win. Buffalo are now on the longest losing streak in the NHL since the Penguins went 18 in a row back in 2004. Andrei Vasilevskiy has had his 12-game winning streak ended by Roope Hintz of the Dallas Stars as the Dallas Stars beat Tampa Bay Lightning 4-3. The longest goalkeeping winning run stands at 14, so Dallas stopped him from getting there. Into NFL, and free agency has continued. Malcolm Butler is cornerback. He's filling the hole on the Cardinals' defense that has been left by the departure of Patrick Peterson. Butler will join them on a 1-year deal. The Cardinals have also traded centre Mason Cole to the Vikings after they traded for Rodney Hudson from the Raiders. So they've got rid of one centre and brought in another centre there. Kansas City Chiefs have re-signed DeMarcus Robinson to a 1-year deal, while Tampa Bay have re-signed kicker Ryan Suckup and are finalising a 1-year deal to bring Ndamukong Suh back to Tampa Bay. So they've managed quite well there in Tampa to keep a lot of their title-winning defence together, as well as parts of the offence, with Chris Godwin signing a franchise tag, Brady signed a new contract, Gronkowski signed a new contract there. Not quite sure what's happening in the running back position as Leonard Fournette's not yet signed anything, but they still do have Ronald Jones. They're starting to consolidate their pieces as they will look to try and become the first team since New England to win back-to-back Super Bowls, which was under Brady. So something there to keep an eye on. Now, if you're a Chicago Bears fan, there is good or bad news, depending on where you sit on Andy Dalton. It appears that he has been named the starting QB. Dalton said that he was told in a news conference with the team that he would be the starter, and a post from the Bears social media showed a picture of Dalton in Bears gear with a caption QB1. The response, however, hasn't been particularly great from fans. Slightly unsurprisingly, given that Dalton went 4-5 from 9 starts for the Cowboys. He threw for 2,169 yards off 216 completions and threw 14 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. He was also sacked 24 times, losing a total of 184 yards, as well as fumbling twice, one of which was a lost fumble. Not particularly standout stats for a starter, although it is an improvement on Nick Foles. Nick Foles went 2-5 from 7 for the Bears last season. He threw for 1,852 yards with 10 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Meanwhile, Mitchell Trubisky, who has now gone and is now with the Bills, he went 6-3 from 9 starts for the Bears. He threw for 2,055 yards, 16 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, but had 18 sacks and 6 fumbles, 2 of which were lost. So Dalton is an improvement in their quarterback room, but given that Ryan Fitzpatrick was an available free agent and he signed a contract not too similar to the one that Dalton has signed in Chicago, with Fitzpatrick now on the Washington football team's roster, it does wonder whether are they going to regret not signing Ryan Fitzpatrick, or are they going for we're going to tank this season and let's get the number 1 2022 pick. That could be a plan there, but it does seem like a strange plan to do if you're just going to pay a quarterback a lot of money to go for a high draft pick next year. Their other option is to bring in somebody like Dalton, who is a bit more veteran, and then look to try and address the quarterback need through the draft. So the likes of Mac Jones and Kyle Trask are expected to either be early second rounders, or Mac Jones is like potentially going to be a late first rounder. So some people are predicting that Mac Jones might go in like the 32nd pick to Tampa Bay, or he may go a bit earlier than that, but around where Chicago have their first round pick. Chicago hold the 20th pick. So that may be the other option that they may have, may be to, if Mac Jones goes at like 15 to New England, there is potential that Chicago take a jump, take a risk, and take Kyle Trask in the first round, or the possibility that they might trade up to get a top 10 pick in the second round and then take him there, given that the teams in the top 10 are likely to take quarterbacks in the first round. So obviously the Jags will likely to take Trevor Lawrence. You're looking at that's Justin Field, and some of the others there are expected to go in the top 10, meaning that the teams who will hold top 10 picks in the second round will already have addressed their quarterback need or already have a quarterback in place. So there are a couple of other options that would fall further down, sort of late second, early third round picks, but given the talent of Mac Jones and Kyle Trask, it would make sense that if you were wanting to address it this year, they would be the two people as Chicago you would target. Potentially they are going to be the face of our franchise, they're going to be our QB going forward, but what we might do is we might rotate them in with Dalton for the first year, or we might sit them behind similar sort of situations to Miami did with Tua Tagovailoa and that Kansas City did with Patrick Mahomes. But there's still a month until that happens, so lots of things could happen between now and then, but I don't expect Chicago to be really in the trade market or free agency looking at another quarterback. There's still speculation about Deshaun Watson's future, Russell Wilson's future, but I don't expect Chicago to be involved in those talks. I think if Chicago are now going to go out and get another quarterback, it is going to be in the draft, or they're going to leave it and go for somebody next year. A couple of things to watch this week. Not as much of an interesting week. We've still got a lot of international football. England are taking on Albania on Sunday at 5 o'clock, and then they'll play Poland on Wednesday at 7:45. Both of those will be on ITV. Meanwhile, Scotland will play Italy on Sunday at 7:45 before they host the Faroe Islands on Wednesday, and that's also 7:45. Both of those will be on Sky. This Sunday we'll see the start of the Formula 1 season with the Bahrain Grand Prix. That's at 4 o'clock on Sky. So the F1 season will be back and we will have lots of races. But that's all for this week. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week time.